From Shadow to Light, Reclaiming Your Story. Part 2, The Power of Narratives. We gain our identity through stories. We create ourselves and our world through stories. We enter the world breathing in stories, and we leave the world with stories on our lips. Through stories, we form our families, our communities, and our nations. Stories are, simply put, the stuff of which we are made. From our lived experiences, each of us constructs an autobiographical self, a narrative identity that confers a sense of coherence and meaning to our individual lives. Through telling and retelling stories among ourselves and across the generations, autobiographical selves constitute, create, and recreate human culture. The preeminent anthropologist and systems theorist Gregory Bateson once wrote, "People in a family act to control the range of one another's behavior." Our families are crucibles in which our identities and narratives become shaped. Within our families, for better and for worse, we learn. In family, seeds of perspective and identity, faith and purpose are planted. We are born into a community of folks that we have never chosen, yet the course of our existence is destined to flow out of it. We are born into stories. People don't make up their lives from scratch. We are all born into stories, and those stories shape our perceptions of what is possible. But we don't usually think of the stories we are born into as stories. We think of them as reality. These stories we are born into come from our families, the media, and the culture in which we grew up. As these vary, so do our versions of reality. Stigma shapes our reality. Our self-image is profoundly affected by experiences of media portrayal, racial discrimination, the internalization of gender and sexual identity norms, the psychological effects of mental illness, and the lived realities of poverty and discrimination. These factors shape our internal narratives about who we are and what we can achieve, influencing our sense of agency and potential outcomes. What are internal stories? Internal stories are the narratives we create to make sense of our experiences. They guide our understanding of who we are and how we relate to the world. Trauma often disrupts these narratives, introducing fear, shame, or self-doubt. Our families help determine our stories not only in the cultures and environments we grew up in, but also in the ways in which our needs were met or not met, in the ways we were respected or not respected, and in the ways they valued our thoughts and feelings. We take the way that the world responds to us and that we respond to the world, and use these to create a narrative about who we are and what we need to do to get through life. Humans are natural storytellers. We seek stories in books, movies, and conversations. Stories help us make sense of our lives, shaping our identity and influencing well-being. Research shows that the beginning and endings of stories are critical. They help us frame success, failure, and growth. Consider where stories begin and end, and how important those segments are. Think also of perspective, the difference in our perceptions of the Civil War, growing up in the North versus the South. What if the story of Oliver Twist had begun with his parents and ended when he was orphaned? What if the story of Tom Sawyer had ended when he was alone, painting the fence? Wouldn't that have changed things for you? So who wrote your story to this point? And who will write your story from this point on? Consider the arc of your story. We've all experienced both high points and low points in our lives, almost always several of each. Take a moment to reflect on your own life story. Where does your story begin? What would you consider a meaningful ending to that story, given how it began? The arc of your life story matters. It gives shape and meaning to your experiences. A story that starts at a low point and ends on a high point can be an inspiring tale of triumph. A story that begins on a high point and ends on a low point serves as a cautionary tale or a moral lesson. A story that weaves through numerous highs and lows is a testament to endurance and resilience. Now think about your own life. Where does your story begin and where does it end? Or where would you like it to end? What meaning have you attached to your journey so far? And most importantly, what meaning would you like it to have? Where your story starts and ends matters. Every telling is an arbitrary imposition of meaning on the flow of memory, in that we highlight some causes and discount others. Every telling is interpretive. Stories define how we see ourselves and influence our future actions. The same set of events can create a different narrative depending on where the story begins and ends. Retelling your story in a deliberate fashion offers a chance to reflect, grow, and choose empowering perspectives. There are 3 basic story forms. Ascending story forms: we came here with nothing and we thrived. Descending story forms: we were doing well and then we lost it all. Oscillating story forms include ups and downs, and they're often a lesson in resilience. They tell how we came back from that low point, that some things turned out well and other things don't, and that we're not doomed by our problems, that everything's not going to be good all the time, but then again, everything's not going to be all bad all the time. Which story arc resonates most with your life? So again, timelines matter. Where your story begins and ends helps determine how you see yourself in the world. Feel free to download the blank timeline from the Mental Health Board website where you access this training, or create your own, and choose some way to denote the times when you were proud, or successful, or triumphant, as opposed to times when you may have felt ashamed, down, or defeated. For example, you can use symbols, triangles pointed up for highs, triangles pointed down for lows, and circles or arrows for turning points. Now, looking at your timeline, section off a portion of your timeline that provides a descending arc, and imagine that as your story. Then, section off a portion of your timeline that provides an ascending arc, and now imagine that as your story. Finally, section off a portion of your timeline that provides an oscillating arc, one that covers several highs and lows, and now imagine that as your story. When you think of your life the way you normally think about it, where does your story begin and end? Is it an ascending, a descending, or an oscillating story? If it's a descending story, where might it start and end? If it's an ascending story, where might that start and end? And if it's an oscillating story, where might that start and end? How does it feel different telling one version from the other? When you tell one version versus the other version, how or where do you imagine the next chapter of your story? It makes a difference. Where you are going depends on where you've been. It's a lot easier to get to Paris from Versailles than it is from Chicago. And if you're trying to get to New York from Chicago and head west, it will take you a lot longer than necessary. Where you come from matters, and most of us come from families. There's a significant impact of trauma on our stories. Trauma affects how we perceive and narrate our lives. It can distort our internal stories, shaping how we see ourselves, others, and the world. Understanding these changes can help us heal and rewrite our narratives. Trauma exposes our weaknesses. Most notably, it exposes our weaknesses and points of vulnerability to ourselves. When we are abused, it teaches us that we're not worthwhile, not worth respecting, and that our pain doesn't matter. It strips us of our sense of safety, making us believe we are always at risk. We internalize these lessons, becoming our own harshest critics, constantly doubting our worth and questioning our right to exist without shame. Over time, we may learn to wear the mask of survival, but underneath the damage festers, unacknowledged, always reminding us of how deeply we are broken. Family stories are as vital as personal ones in creating identity. They remind children that they are part of a larger community and history. Sharing family narratives fosters a sense of belonging and helps children understand their place in the world. Mothers and grandmothers are often the most elaborate storytellers in the family, and the act of co-creating a story about what is happening with a small child will help that child establish and understand their identity. Mothers who are more elaborative have children who recall more detailed information. Allowing our children to select the events they discuss allows them to have and feel more agency. Children of mothers who reminisce in more elaborate ways show advantages in literacy, strategic memory, theory of mind, emotional regulation, and self-concept. Parents can help children craft detailed and coherent stories about challenging experiences. Narratives that integrate thoughts, emotions, and events promote understanding and healing. Narratives connect past, present, and future selves. These stories improve emotional well-being and build resilience over time. In early conversations guided by parents, children start to build an understanding of themselves over time, a sense of their present self remembering their past self from their own point of view. Parents play a key role in this process by encouraging children to share their personal experiences. They can do this by asking questions, offering suggestions, confirming or correcting details, and helping the child shape their memories into clearer, more organized stories that are easier to share with others. Trauma can fragment our sense of self, making us feel disconnected or broken. Narratives may shift to focus on weakness or blame. I'm not good enough, or I deserve this. These stories can fuel feelings of helplessness and hopelessness. The emotional weight of trauma distorts our perception of self-worth, making it difficult to trust our own thoughts or decisions, and affecting our ability to form healthy relationships and navigate life's challenges. Stories that include elements of growth and redemption contribute to you and your children understanding yourselves and the world in a more profound way. They can help you and them find meaning in difficult experiences, and such reframing helps children develop optimism and problem-solving skills. Realize that we only know that our memories might be different from someone else's when we share and compare them with others. This helps us understand that memory is not an exact copy of reality, but a mental picture of it. Memory is reconstructive. Instead of simply retrieving stored information, our brains piece it back together in the moment. When something happens, the brain records patterns of information. Later, In a similar situation or context, those patterns are reactivated, allowing us to recall the event. When adults talk about their own thoughts and feelings while also discussing a child's inner experiences, they help that child grasp the complexity of how thoughts, feelings, and awareness vary over time and between different people. It's important to balance emotions in family stories, acknowledging both the negative and positive emotions when recounting family stories. For example, it was a hard time, but we learned to stick together. Or as Charles Dickens put it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. This balance teaches children emotional honesty while fostering hope and resilience. And we would love for our kids to grow up with a smooth and easy life, no bumps, no bruises, and certainly no crises or trauma. However, reality predicts that there will be highs and lows in their lives, as there are in our own. Stories of overcoming struggle and pain will help them in their journey. In creating coherent accounts of who we are, we simultaneously create coherent accounts of our emotions over time. How we tell the stories of our lives is critical to our sense of emotional well-being. Individuals who create more coherent and elaborated narratives about their past enjoy higher levels of psychological health. They report higher levels of self-esteem, lower levels of depression, and higher levels of meaning and purpose in life. Some practical tips for using family stories are to share stories about how family members overcame adversity or helped others. Encourage children to ask questions and participate in storytelling. Use storytelling moments to connect lessons to their current challenges. If you have young children, or even adolescents, co-creating stories with them will help them on their journey. Stories of struggles you had at their age or a little older will help them to realize that they are not so alone. Your stories about past events will live in their present. Stories of your struggles or the struggles of your parents and grandparents and how they overcame them, or even learn to live with them, will help them build their own resilience. Trauma often rewrites our internal story around fear. The world isn't safe. I can't trust anyone. These narratives may lead to hypervigilance or withdrawal, impacting relationships and daily life. When we are treated as if we don't matter, as if our thoughts, feelings, and pain don't matter, then the message we receive is that we don't matter. Especially as a child, there is a strong belief that we get what we deserve. Traumatic memories can feel fragmented or incomplete, disrupting the story's coherence. Flashbacks and intrusive thoughts may replay the trauma, keeping it central to our narrative. A lack of resolution leaves the story unfinished and contributes to ongoing distress and a more impoverished autobiographical self. Trauma amplifies negative emotions in our narratives. Shame, I'm flawed. Guilt, it was my fault. Hopelessness, things will never get better. These emotions can dominate our internal dialogue and infect our sense of self. Trauma may influence stories about relationships and tell us, I can't depend on others, or that people will always hurt me. This can lead to isolation, mistrust, or difficulties in forming healthy connections. When those who abuse us are also those who are responsible for our care, our very survival, then we of necessity begin to compartmentalize our thoughts and feelings. When we can't trust those who take care of us not to harm us, we see relationships not only as a comfort, but a threat as well. No wonder that those who have been abused as children, through caregiver neglect or abuse, or through a failure of our caregivers to protect us, have difficulty with relationships later in life. Avoiding our trauma stories is common. We suppress memories and feelings. We avoid triggers and reminders. Avoidance can reinforce the narrative of fear and control in our lives. Those of us unable to recall traumatic events tend to have a more impoverished autobiographical self. Healing begins with acknowledging the trauma and its impact on your story. Therapy and self-reflection help reframe the narrative, focusing on growth and resilience, moving us from I'm a victim to I'm a survivor who overcame. And every one of us who has been abused, neglected, or preyed upon has done something to protect ourselves, even if that protection looks like freezing, fawning, or fleeing. Cultivating awareness of our self-protective instincts empowers us and our clients to transition from becoming victims to becoming survivors. There's a difference. A coherent narrative integrates the traumatic event into a broader life story. This happened, it hurt, but I've learned and grown. Coherence allows the trauma to become a chapter and not the entire book of our lives. Sharing our stories with trusted individuals fosters understanding and healing. Support systems help us challenge distorted narratives and build new, empowering ones. I am not alone. I have people who care about me. If this is your story, it is your decision as to with whom and when you will share your story. If this is your client's story, it is their decision as to with whom and when they will share their story. Reclaiming your story. Trauma changes our internal stories, but it doesn't have to define them. Through reflection, therapy, and connection, we can reauthor our narratives with themes of strength, growth, and hope. We are the authors of our stories, and we have the power to give meaning to our struggles, and in doing so, give meaning to our lives. This is the end of Part 2. In Part 3, we will begin to explore narrative techniques.